Early in my kids' lives, I had them tested by a brilliant psychologist named Sue Quinlan. Her assessments proved spot on and provided a great roadmap for how they would develop over the years. Because that testing process has been so successful, I worked with her and others to try and identify the best tests for determining what the people I worked with were like. In 2006, I took the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator assessment for the first time and found its description of my preferences to be remarkably accurate. So, how is everybody? Hope you all had a great weekend, relaxed or got prepared for the week. We are going to dive straight into Ray Dalio's Principles, which has been a really great book so far. I am looking forward to, I thought my page divider wasn't there for a second, but it is. Today is a new week, new opportunities, and let's see what we can achieve this week. But let's do some reading to start off with. I'm going to be reading from Discovering Psychometric Testing. Here we go. I'm excited, and I hope you are too. Early in my kids' lives, I had them tested by a brilliant psychologist named Sue Quinlan. Her assessments proved spot on and provided a great roadmap for how they would develop over the years. Because that testing process has been so successful, I worked with her and others to try and identify the best tests for determining what the people I worked with were like. In 2006, I took the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator assessment for the first time and found its description of my preferences to be remarkably accurate. Many of the differences it describes, such as those between intuiting people who tend to focus on big picture concepts and sensing people who pay more attention to specific facts and details, were highly relevant to the conflicts and disagreements we were having at Bridgewater. I began to look for other tests that could help us deepen our understanding of each other. This was slow going at first, largely because most of the psychologists I met were surprisingly squeamish about exploring differences. But eventually I found a few great people, especially a psychologist named Bob Eichinger, who pointed me to a number of other very useful tests. In early 2008, I had most of Bridgewater's managers take the Myers-Briggs assessment. The results astounded me. I couldn't believe that some of them actually thought in the ways the test described. Yet when I asked them them to rate how well it described them on a scale of 1 to 5, more than 80% of them gave it a 4 or 5. Very, very interesting. So Myers-Briggs, there's a very interesting video about how it was created that talks about the fact that it was based on not very much, but at the same time, there are other very, very good tests that are amazing. So, for example, my friend Bladen, who is online with me at the moment on Zoom, he loves the Kolbe Index, and that is a very, very good and very valuable test for being able to understand yourself and how you also interact with other people. So while the history may be a bit debatable, the actual results that you can get and the ways in which you can use it can be extremely valuable. So there have been times where he and I may not have been the same kind of personalities, but by understanding what is in that test, it makes it easier for you to be able to interact well, to be able to work together, to be able to understand each other's differences, and to smooth out some of those challenges that you might have. So very valuable for business owners. As an investor, also extremely valuable because it will give you the opportunity to be able to see where you're likely to go out and rush into things that you shouldn't rush into, or where you're going to overanalyze and think on something for much too long. And it will give you all of these different indicators that can help you. If you're not able to fix your own weaknesses, which is completely fine, we all have weaknesses that are a little bit challenging, and it's probably better to spend time on our strengths. Then what you can do is you can look for people to surround yourself with, which is what we do at Cashflow. Surround you with people that have different skill sets, so that you are able to then tap into people who have different other personality types that can complement and add to your skill set in order to be able to create a team that is unstoppable. So I'll tell you more about that cash flow later on in the video. We'll continue reading for now, but that was a nice little segue. Even after we were armed with the Myers-Briggs data and other tests we'd taken, I found that we were still having a hard time connecting the dots between the outcomes that we were seeing and what we knew about the people producing them. Over and over again, the same people would walk into the same meetings, do things the same way, and get the same results without seeking to understand why. Recently, I came across a study that revealed a cognitive bias in which people consistently overlook the evidence of one person being better than another at something and assume that both are equally good at the task. This was exactly what we were seeing. For example, people who were known not to be creative were being assigned tasks that required creativity. People who didn't pay attention to details were being assigned to detail-oriented jobs, and so on. We needed a way to make data that showed what people were like even clearer and more explicit. So I began making baseball cards for employees that listed their stats. The idea was that they could be passed around and referred to when assigning responsibilities. Just as you wouldn't have a great fielder with a .160 batting average bat third, you wouldn't assign a big picture person a task requiring attention to details. I like this baseball card idea. I might start implementing this at cash flow as well. It would be very, very useful. At first, this idea met a lot of resistance. People were concerned that the baseball cards wouldn't be accurate, that producing them would be too time-consuming, and that they would only succeed in pigeonholing people unfairly. But over time, everybody's attitudes towards this approach of openly exploring what people are like shifted 180 degrees. Most people found that having this information out in the open for everybody to see was more liberating than constraining, because when it became the norm, people gained the sort of comfort that comes with just being themselves at work that family members have with each other at home. Because this way of operating was so unusual, a number of behavioral psychologists came to Bridgewater to evaluate it. I urge you to read their assessments, which were overwhelmingly favorable. The Harvard psychologist Bob Keegan called Bridgewater a form of proof that the quest for business excellence and the search for personal realization need not be mutually exclusive, and can, in fact, be essential to each other. I should also explain that my personal circumstances at the time also drew me to psychology and neurology. While for the most part I am keeping my family members' lives out of this book to protect their privacy, I will tell you one story about my son Paul, as it is relevant and he is open about it. After graduating from New York University's Tisch Film School, Paul headed out to Los Angeles to take a job. One day he went to the front desk of the hotel where he was staying while he looked for an apartment and smashed their computer. He was arrested and thrown in jail, where he was beaten up by guards. Ultimately, he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, released into my custody, and admitted to the psychiatric ward of a hospital. That was the beginning of a 3-year roller coaster ride that took Paul, Barbara, and me to the peaks of his manias and the depths of his depressions. Through the twists and turns of the healthcare system and into discussions with some of the most brilliant and caring psychologists, psychiatrists, and neuroscientists at work today. There is nothing to prompt learning like pain and necessity, and this gave me plenty of both. At times, I felt as though I was holding Paul by the hand as he was dangling off a cliff. From one day to the next, I never knew whether I could hold on or if he would slip from my hand grip. I worked intensely with his caregivers to understand what was going on and what to do about it. Thanks both to the help he received and his own great character, Paul worked through this and is now better off than if he hadn't fallen into his abyss, because he developed strengths he didn't have but needed. Paul was once wild, staying out till all organized, disorganized, smoking marijuana and drinking, but he now faithfully takes his meds, meditates, goes to bed early, and avoids drugs and alcohol. He had loads of creativity but lacked discipline. Now he has plenty of both. As a result, he is more creative now than he was before, and is happily married, the father of 2 boys, an accomplished filmmaker, and a crusader helping those who struggle with bipolar disorder. So that is extremely vulnerable from Ray Dalio there. And I suppose it is really important to realize that there are different things that are going on for everybody. And I think this is a challenging one. So I actually know a couple of people who have mental disorders similar to this. I knew one who did not continue with their medication, and they continued to spiral off course, and it was a bit of an issue. So it is something that you need to look into very, very deeply, into how you want to come up with a solution. You want to be able to come up with a solution, but you also want to be able to still have that creativity that it gives you. There are a lot of actors and other very creative people who have mental illnesses. It's a really interesting one, because the shamans in the world, people who would heal and look after the people in certain tribes in South America and in Africa and different other places, they would say that these people are actually gifted. They have connections to other places, to other beings, and we're going a little bit off track from investing. But it's important to recognize who you are, and I think that's what this part of this chapter is about: recognizing who you are, the psychological test in order to be able to recognize who you are. And so these actors, they are very, very brilliant, and you want to be able to still maintain that. The shaman would say that these people have connections to somewhere else. They are very, very gifted. They just don't fit into the society because we've created a box for them. And really, they should be able to just function on their own, who they are. They need a bit of guidance, but they should be able to function the way they are. Medication is going to put them into the box a little bit, but they should still be able to be who they are, and the box can be expanded. But because society wants them inside that box, there are ways that you can stay within that box with medication, or there are certain also holistic treatments that you can look into. So very, very serious topic, not related to investment, but something that a lot of people are going to have in their immediate environment in many different kinds of ways. Here we go. His radical transparency about being bipolar and his commitment to help others with it inspires me. His first feature film, Touched with Fire, which received lots of acclaim, gave many people who might have lost their lives to bipolar disorder both the hope and the path forward they needed. I remember watching him shoot one scene based on a real conversation between us, in which he was manic and I was struggling to reason with him. I could simultaneously see the actor playing Paul at his worst, while the real Paul was at his best directing the scene. As I watched, my mind flashed over his whole journey, from the depths of his abyss, through his metamorphosis into the strong hero standing in front of him, someone on a mission to help others, going through what he had gone through. That journey through hell gave me a much deeper understanding of how and why we see things differently. I learned that much of how we think is psychological and can be changed. For example, Paul's wild swings were due to the inconsistent secretions of dopamine and other chemicals in his brain. So he could change by controlling these chemicals and the activities and the stimuli affecting them. I learned that creative genius and insanity can be quite close to each other, that the same chemistry that creates insights can cause distortions, and that being stuck in one's own head is terribly dangerous. When Paul was crazy, he always believed his own illogical arguments, no matter how strange they sounded to others. While more extreme in the case of someone with bipolar disorder, this is something I've seen most everyone do. I also learned how people can control their brains, how their brains work to produce dramatically better effects. These insights helped me to deal with people more effectively, and I'll explain in detail in Chapter 4. Understand that people are wired very differently. And then tomorrow we're going to continue with making Bridgewater rock solid and cutting edge. So I will say from this section that it is extremely important and it is extremely good to understand your personality. When other people understand your personality, and this is something that I love about, something that Mladen does, when you see his Zoom, he will have the ability to actually put down, I am this personality type, and he has some information there, which is extremely beneficial. It's a little bit like that baseball card. So he's already created the baseball card. And yes, it's going to be a lot of fun implementing the idea that I just had for baseball cards at Cashflow. And somebody is calling me from somewhere. So it is extremely good to understand and know your psychology. And we are definitely going to now look into ways to implement that at Cashflow, because that has just opened my eyes even further to something that I already knew. And yes, that is going to be not just really beneficial, but also a lot of fun, and mainly beneficial, because that's the most important thing. We want people to be able to invest wisely and understand each other's personalities, be able to set up a great team around them. So speaking of a great team, cash flow is a great place where you can simulate real life and you can practice investing in stocks, investing in real estate, investing in business, and understanding how it all functions and how to do the calculations and how to be able to get ahead financially. And then also based on that, it is more realistic than even the original cash flow game, which means that you are then going to be able to translate that into real life. And we are creating an infrastructure at the Cash Flow Club so you can actually implement and get better in real life. So even if you're already investing, you can get better in real life. So this is a great mission for this year. I am extremely excited. So if you'd like to know more information, or if you have investing questions that you'd like me to answer, you can go to Instagram, business_team_6_official. You'll be able to actually, I just noticed one camera is the right way and the other one's the wrong way. So if I do this, it's correct on one of the cameras. And if I do this, it's correct on the other camera. So business_team_6_official is where you'll find me on Instagram. Send me your questions and we'll turn them into videos so that we can publish them online. And that reminds me, I need to write that down. Let's have a look. Always write down ideas when you think of them. So make sure you go to there and then you can ask your questions and we'll create YouTube videos that you can then watch on YouTube that answer your questions. And it's beneficial not just for you, but also for other people. Some questions that other people might ask, you might get benefit from when you watch them on YouTube. So if you're interested in cash flow, send me a message on Instagram and I'll get my VA, my virtual assistant, to send you the details. If you would like to have your questions answered, then send them through to Instagram and we will answer those and get the answers to those and publish those for you as well. And if you like these videos and if you like this this reading of Ray Dalio's principles, we also have Rich Dad Poor Dad. We have The Art of Thinking Clearly. We already have some of the questions that you have asked already in YouTube. You can find us at the Passive Cash Flow Club. Make sure you hit subscribe because you'll know when there are new videos uploaded. You'll also know when the questions are being uploaded, and it might be a question that you have and that will help you solve your challenges so that you can invest more, invest better, or get started with investing if you haven't already. So thank you so much for joining. We're going to stop the recording. I'm going to quickly jump onto Bigo and see who has sent little hearts and who's commented and reply to those. Have an absolutely amazing first day of the week. Go out and be very clear on what it is that you want to achieve by the end of the week. Be very clear on where you need to be by the end of today, and then go out and achieve that. Have an absolutely spectacular day today, and remember to make the switch to unlock your rich.